The time Wells Fargo exorcised demons for its customers. Wells Fargo has had some recent controversies with customers over the last few years, but like any company, when they started, they did what they could to win over customers and make them happy. In fact, they were extremely successful in winning over people and provided many services that simply allowed the Western United States to grow and function. Talk about living long enough to become the villain. We need to go back to the 1850s. In 1851 San Francisco, the gold rush had been going on for 2 years. The city was expanding, but the new wooden structures quickly set up to house the newly arrived thousands were quite flammable. Between 1849 and 1851, around 7 fires had broken out in the city and caused large amounts of damage and loss of life. Frustrated by all this, wealthy businessman Sam Perot was determined to build a building that would not burn down inside the business district on Montgomery Street. He imported granite from quarries in China and wanted to utilize the Chinese labor that was abundant in the city due to the gold rush. Only thing was, the Chinese masons refused to touch the materials. Perot sent for the quarry's boss, and when he eventually arrived, explained that the structure was going to be built on the wrong corner of the street, according to those around. This would lead to bad or evil energy to grow inside the building. An exorcism of sorts was suggested to rectify the problem. Perot agreed at first, which helped get the labor started on the place. Once complete, 2 businesses moved in: the Page, Bacon & Company firm, and the largest on the West Coast at the time, with equally impressive holdings on the Eastern Seaboard, Adams & Company. These are both banking and shipping businesses, and they dominated most of the shipments of gold and other goods from California to the East Coast. The new Perot building was very impressive, and these companies wanted the prestige of doing business in such a place. But either because he didn't feel like he had the time, or simply didn't care, Perot just didn't seem to get around to listening to the stonecutter's advice, and never had the ritual of exorcism performed. Because of this, many, if not all, the Chinese customers refused to do any business within the building, and walked across the street to bank with an up-and-coming competitor, Wells Fargo. Starting in 1852, Wells Fargo had some catching up to do with Adams and Page's companies. Like them, they did banking and shipping, called Express at the time, and the company also had great connections back east. The new influx of Chinese customers helped, but the other companies were still going strong. However, things would begin to change. By 1855, the surface gold in Northern California had started to dwindle, and profits from gold shipments began to drop. This was made worse by reckless venture capital spending. Page and Bacon received a request to send most of their reserves to their offices back in New York to help out with railroad speculation. A few months after this, word arrived in San Francisco that Page and Bacon had failed in New York, and its customers in San Francisco soon did a run on the bank. Adams and Company fared no better. Failed investments, embezzlement, and suffering their own bank run caused by Page's fiasco, Adams & Company paid out much of their reserves and had virtually no more property left to transfer for cash. It permanently closed its doors on February 23, 1855, nicknamed Black Friday at the time. Wisely, at the same time, the manager at the well-maintained Wells Fargo branch office closed its doors too and requested an outside audit of its books. The next day, the papers wrote about how Wells Fargo had over $300,000 in reserves and just needed a few days to liquidate some property into cash. This demonstration of calmness and the audit to prove to the public that things were okay did a lot to settle some nerves of Wells Fargo's customers, but not enough to prevent its own bank run. On the Tuesday after Black Friday, Wells Fargo opened again to a rush of people and closed out the day with over $100,000 still in reserve. It survived, and not only that, it inherited all the customers of its former competitors. Wells Fargo even eventually moved in across the street as well into the Perot building, but unlike its predecessors, apparently had a Chinese priest perform all rituals of exorcism for the building. Once completed, Wells Fargo kept its numerous Chinese customers and began to dominate all banking and freight within the West. I am not done talking about Wells Fargo's history here in the American West, so stay tuned on the channel. I hope you liked the video and would like to thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe for more and hit the like button. It's free and helps out a ton. This is Eric, the Lone Pine Wolfman, and remember, never stop learning.